Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, for the very first time, we get to take a look at a fully maxed out level 50 Keldeo Resolute form in the Master League. Now these battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Blazingly Blaze, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now Keldeo in its Resolute form does get access to a brand new charge attack Secret Sword. This is an incredibly efficient attack. It's a fighting type clone of the move Leaf Blade, meaning that it does 70 damage while only costing 35 energy. And for the team, Blaze pairs it up with a Zekrom and a Veltal in the back. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. And in game number 1, Blaze off to a strong start, leading Keldeo into Shadow Rhyperior. Aqua Jet will hit for double super effective damage, so this is a pretty safe Secret Sword bait. Secret Sword is going to be shielded up by Rhyperior. Rhyperior over farming, trying to CMP tie to Secret Sword number 2, but in doing so, they're just going to give Keldeo a free poison jab. This Rhyperior is on superpower, and they're already at a superpower number 2. This will force Keldeo's second shield. Opponent safe switches into Lunala, and they're going to regret that decision as in comes a Veltal. Lunala doesn't really have counters on the safe switch, with one very glaring exception, and that's the Pokemon on the field. A Veltal is going to get a full farm down, exiting with a ton of energy, and this Veltal is packing Focus Blast for this exact moment. Focus Blast into Rhyperior is going to connect, picking up the one-hit KO. In the back is Meloetta, and Meloetta could be a little bit scary, but there's so much stored energy on Keldeo. Keldeo firing off Secret Sword, and that does add up quite a bit, even on a Pokemon that's as bulky as Meloetta. Secret Sword number 2 is going to be shielded. It's a CMP tie, Keldeo winning charge attack priority. That is absolutely going to seal it. As in comes Zekrom. Zekrom so speedy, racing to the Fusion Bolt, unable to get there, but this is only a Psyshock. Psyshock lands, that's not going to be a problem. Now this Zekrom is running Crunch, but Fusion Bolt is still going to do enough. Fusion Bolt lands, down goes Meloetta, and that is a good game. Hopping into game number 2, picking up a pretty decent lead, Keldeo into Zacian. Even though Poison Jab is going to be single resisted, Secret Sword is going to hit for some pretty significant neutral damage. Keldeo farms up quite a bit, firing off Secret Sword number 1. Secret Sword is going to land. It looks like it will fall just shy of picking up the 2-hit KO. Zacian, will they go for the close combat? Yes, they close combat, now they're debuffed. They save switch Lunala, but this time Blaze is making a read. Blaze is clearly reading that a Veltal will be good in the back, so he chooses to send in Zekrom. Zekrom able to grab the shield with Crunch. I think as Zekrom, you kind of can't afford to shield here, so Zekrom is going to let itself get KO'd by the Moonblast, and instead, now it's time for massive farm on a Veltal. So unfortunately, the decision to try and save that Veltal for endgame didn't really work as intended, as a Veltal is going to be still hit for some pretty significant damage. Opponent pivots out and reveals their final Pokemon to be Zekrom. But with this much stored energy on Keldeo, is there a world in which Keldeo can take home this win? Keldeo massively over farming, unfortunately playing to a CMP tie that it does not win. Zekrom Fusion Bolt grabs the final shield. This Keldeo is absolutely loaded. Keldeo going for an undercharge on the Secret Sword. Zekrom puts up the shield, but they are not going to outpace. Keldeo is just simply too fast. Secret Sword will take the knockout. Back in comes Lunala, answered with a Veltal. There's the switch into Zacian, but Zacian is too far behind. A Veltal already at the Oblivion Wing. It won't knock out, but it will get a defense boost, helping a Veltal farm all the way down. Back in comes Lunala. Now it's Lunala's turn to farm down. It's going to be a race to the finish. Keldeo gets the resisted farm down and takes the win. We move to game number 3, leading Keldeo into Palkia. Now, this is honestly a matchup that I'm not super familiar with, but I assume the name of the game for Keldeo is all down to correctly shielding Spatial Rends. Keldeo shields, gets the call right, it is the Spatial Rend, and now this will let Keldeo take advantage of the fact that it does have a pacing advantage. Secret Sword lands, getting that Palkia pretty low. The Secret Sword damage is very impressive. 70-35 is an extremely efficient move. Secret Sword number 2 will get the shield. Keldeo could potentially let itself go in exchange for farm, but no. This is the Keldeo showcase. Keldeo shields up the Spatial Rend, gets the Poison Jab farm down, and exits with a ton of residual energy. What is the opponent going to send in here? They're going to be sending in a Zacian, but Zacian is not going to be a big fan of the Secret Sword damage. Secret Sword will add up. 2 Secret Swords, while Zacian can survive, it's going to be deep into the red HP. So now Zacian has to decide, are they willing to throw away almost their entire health bar? They say no, but they do get a massive farm down. This could be a problem for the Zekrom. The Zekrom would love nothing more than to reach a Fusion Bolt and take the knockout, but with the energy head start on the Zacian, that's just not going to happen. Zacian outpaces by one singular turn. Close combat takes the KO. In comes a Veltal, but it's Lunala in the back, and the win con has been found. even with super effective Moonblast, that's just not going to knock out the bulky Yveltal. Yveltal hangs on, Yveltal gets that full farm down, and leaves with the Focus Blast loaded. Focus Blast is neutral damage, and Zacian is just not surviving. Focus Blast takes the knockout, and Yveltal clutches the win. Hopping into the next match, we see an absolute blast from the past, leading Keldeo into Solgaleo. Solgaleo has some pretty substantial bulk, but also has Psychic Fangs, which will hit Keldeo for super effective. Keldeo gonna be no-shielding, Psychic Fangs lands, that's big damage, and Keldeo is gonna be pivoting out and sending in Zekrom. Zekrom instantly Psychic Fangs debuffed. They switch in a dragon. These Dragon Breaths are going to start shredding, and they do just that as in comes Zekrom. You see the immediate difference there as the opponent is now breakpointing to Zekrom. They're going to go for a one-shield farm down. Zekrom able to make a last-second crunch. Since the moveset has been revealed, the opponent not going to be shielding a second time, but that was still some pretty nice damage onto the Zekrom. In comes Yveltal. Yveltal going to be shielding up the Fusion Bolt and trying to farm down before they can make it to another Fusion Bolt, but unfortunately it's not to be. Zekrom hangs on, makes Fusion Bolt number 2, and that's going to make life difficult for Yveltal. Yveltal had to burn both shields. In the back is Reshiram. There's an aggressive pivot into the Keldeo, and that's going to be answered with Solgaleo. Keldeo has to hope Secret Sword can two-shot, but after seeing the damage, it looks like it's going to fall agonizingly short. That is the downside of having a poison fast move into a steal, is you just have no ability to farm anything down. Solgaleo overfarms, but not enough to let Keldeo make it to a third move. Psychic Fangs will take the KO, and back in comes Yveltal. Yveltal will go straight for the Oblivion Wing. The win con is that the opponent does not have a nuke move. They're on Fusion Flare and Crunch, and that they're not able to outpace, and Yveltal can make the Focus Blast. Unfortunately, Oblivion Wing is not going to be enough damage, and Blaze knows it. Blaze reaching for the Focus Blast, but gets outpaced by one singular turn. What a close game, but unfortunately, Reshiram's pacing is absolutely elite, and Reshiram will take that game. Picking up a tough lead in the next match, Keldeo into Dusk main. A safe switch into Zekrom, answered with Dialga. Dialga not going to care too much about crunch damage, so Blaze is going to bluff a potential Outrage. Crunch does not get shielded, but does get a defense drop, and suddenly these Dragon Breaths from Zekrom are absolutely shredding. Zekrom puts up the shield, opponent full sends the Roar of Time, and it looks like with that new Dragon Breath breakpoint by getting the Crunch debuff, Zekrom is flipping this. Crunch is going to connect, taking the knockout, in comes Palkia. Zekrom, oh no, overfarmed too much, lost the charge attack, but with Switch Advantage 1, should still be in a pretty decent spot, because if the opponent ever hard pivots the Dusk main, which they do right here, they're going to end up losing the game. As in comes Yveltal, and Yveltal is about to absolutely feast. Sunsteel Strike would be devastating. The shield comes up, but they're not running it. Instead, they're on Iron Head. Presumably, they're on Iron Head and Outrage, and Yveltal is just going to get a full farm down. There's the Outrage from Dusk main, but now Yveltal will get to boost itself up by 2 stages as it fires off the back-to-back Oblivion Wings at this Palkia. Oblivion Wing number 1 is going to be shielded, immediately going for Oblivion Wing number 2, and Yveltal will be able to get some pretty nice Sucker Punch damage in, because these Dragon Breaths are doing absolutely nothing. And guess what? They can't farm down. Yveltal is too boosted. They're forced to go for the Aqua Tail. Back in comes Keldeo, and the Secret Sword is ready. Those Sucker Punches added up quite a bit, and that puts Palkia into Secret Sword plus 1 Poison Jab range. Flipping Switch Advantage in the mid-game was everything, and that's going to be another win. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Keldeo into Rhyperior. Rhyperior just going to go for a superpower and dip, so they fire off that charge attack instantly. Keldeo puts up the shield, in comes Yveltal. Yveltal will swiftly be answered with Zekrom. Zekrom trying to outpace and make it to the Fusion Bolt, but will get outpaced here. Yveltal goes for the Dark Pulse, so they do not boost up their defense, but they do get quite a bit of damage. Unfortunately, it's just not enough damage to farm down the Zekrom. Zekrom doubles up, gets the back-to-back Fusion Bolts. Fusion Bolt lands, taking the KO, and back in comes Rhyperior. Rhyperior never going to be shielding as it is only a crunch, not enough for an Outrage, and in comes Keldeo. Keldeo unfortunately mistimes the Secret Sword, and that's going to give a free Mud Slap to Rhyperior. Rhyperior now has the superpower banked, and this is going to force the final shield away from Keldeo. Keldeo continuing to protect that health, and it's going to need it as the final Pokemon is revealed to be Palkia. Palkia will take some pretty sizable damage from the Secret Sword. Secret Sword is going to land. Palkia goes for Aqua Tail, but this just simply will not be enough to secure the KO. Aqua Tail lands, Keldeo too bulky, able to barely withstand that attack and make the last second Secret Sword. Secret Sword does get the shield, in comes Yveltal, and And even though Palkia is going to make it to a Spatial Rend, importantly, this will not be enough to secure the knockout. Palkia lands a Spatial Rend. Yveltal is able to hang on. Yveltal trying for a farm down. There's the switch into Rhyperior, and it's going to be instantly Focus Blasted. Focus Blast lands. Down goes Rhyperior. Back in comes the Palkia. That's getting Sucker Punched down. And Yveltal is an absolute nightmare, and it keeps sweeping games. We see a very familiar lead in the next game, Keldeo into Palkia. Again, this is all going to come down to the bait versus the nuke. Does the opponent ever go for the Aqua Tail bait? No, they keep going for Spatial Rends, and Keldeo shielding has been a very effective punish. Keldeo almost at the back-to-back Secret Swords. First will be shielded. Keldeo going to look to overfarm, trying to make it to a second Secret Sword with some residual energy, but ensuring that they get there before Palkia gets the second Spatial Rend. Keldeo has really liked double shielding in these matchups, just trying to get as much value as possible into the Zacian that's highly likely to be brought in. But no, that's not a Zacian, that's a Zygarde, and unfortunately Zygarde is a Pokemon where Keldeo energy goes to die. Secret Sword lands, that does nothing. In comes Yveltal, Zygarde throwing on alignment as Zygarde players always do. And they do have Outrage, and that's a problem for the Yveltal. Yveltal will be able to boost up its defense and ensure that the next Outrage will not take the knockout, but it would have been very nice if they run Crunch and Earthquake, because then they would have been completely walled. Zygarde is going to bank energy, send in Zacian. Zacian immediately going to get shredded by a Focus Blast. Focus Blast is going to remove a lot of Zacian's health, so they will put up the shield just to get combo played with the Secret Sword. And the Keldeo is healthy enough that I don't think they can go for a farm down. And they can't. They're forced to fire off energy, forced to waste an entire Behemoth Blade just to get rid of that very low health Mon. Back in comes the Zekrom, but the scary thing here is there's an Outrage banked on the Zygarde, and Zygarde gets the snipe. Outrage lands, Zekrom able to hang on, Zekrom gets to the back-to-back, oh my goodness. I did not think Zekrom was surviving, but Zygarde just has no attack stat. There's this pivot out into Yveltal to force energy from this Zacian, and that's going to be game over. They take the knockout with the close combat just to get KO'd by the Fusion Bolt. That game did not look winnable, but somehow Blaze finds a way, and Keldeo has honestly been pretty impressive. We move to the next game. That's a lead we have not seen. Keldeo into Ho-Oh. Aqua Jet will hit for super effective damage, but with Ho-Oh's stats, there's just no way that Aqua Jet is going to meaningfully threaten a shield. Aqua Jet is going to land onto Ho-Oh. For Ho-Oh, that's basically best case scenario. Well, it was until we see the catch onto Zekrom. Zekrom absorbs that Brave Bird, no problem. Out comes Primarina. Primarina is going to get a farm down, but will have to give up a shield to do so, as Fusion Bolt would just hit for way too much damage. Fusion Bolt is going to be shielded. Primarina unfortunately does get 2 extra charms, and they exit loaded on energy, and in comes Yveltal. This Primarina could be a pretty big problem. Primarina, very nice overfarm, and even a Hydro Cannon will do quite a lot of damage. That's exactly what they're going to go for. Oh my goodness, what a catch. Trying to catch the Hydro Cannon onto Keldeo, but this time it's the disarming voice, and nothing is going right in this game. Oh no, Hydro Cannon catch would have been beautiful. Catching a disarming is an absolute disaster. Aqua Jet will take the knockout, but the opponent, if they want to, they can just get free farm. It's going to be Dialga getting a full farm down, and unfortunately, there's just no way to win this game. Even if Yveltal lands the Focus Blast, the damage is already done. Yveltal shields up the Iron Head. Yveltal making it to the Focus Blast. I do want to see this Focus Blast land, even if I already know the game's going to be a loss. There it is. Down goes Dialga. But in comes Primarina. Primarina still has a shield to hide behind. It farms all the way down and takes the win. We move to the next game, Keldeo into Kyurem White. That is a very cool pick from the opponent. I think Kyurem White is extremely underrated right now. Much like Reshiram, its energy just goes everywhere. Well, unless you're going up against the Pokemon like Keldeo, but even against Keldeo, Ice Burn is such an incredibly efficient attack that it's still probably going to force a shield out of Keldeo, and it does. Ice Burn is going to be shielded. Keldeo going to look for the Poison Jab down, gets the Poison Jab down, and exits with a ton of energy. In comes Metagross, and Blaze gets aggressive, pivots out into the Zekrom, and Zekrom will look to connect with the Crunch. Crunch not going to threaten a shield more than likely. Metagross more than happy to let that go. But Blaze can't really afford to shield the Zekrom. Earthquake connects, and the opponent snipes down with Reshiram. But unfortunately for Reshiram, it's about to get absolutely shredded by Secret Sword after Secret Sword. Secret Sword number 1 is going to be shielded. Keldeo looks like it should be able to make 2 more Secret Swords. That's going to be very valuable damage into the Reshiram. Reshiram is going to no shield, hoping for a farm down that it's just simply not going to get. Keldeo makes Secret Sword number 3. That forces the shield, and in comes Yveltal. Yveltal now has a bit of a tough guessing game. Blaze, no shields. He's calling that it's only the flare. It is going to be the flare, and that's a big swing of momentum. Because they were at the back-to-back. They could have potentially tried to sneak a Draco Meteor past the shield. But now this Yveltal is unstoppable. Sucker punching down. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Hopping to the final match, we've got Keldeo into Zacian one final time. Keldeo, as always, going to look to overfarm. Would love to see him P-tie on a close combat. Keldeo farming up a ton of energy, gets the CMP tie. Is this the close combat? That would be massive. No, it's not. The opponent baits with the more expensive Behemoth Blade, still does quite a lot of damage, and importantly, does not debuff their defense. There's a safe switch into Zygarde. This last Zygarde did have Outrage. You really have to hope that this Zygarde does not. Yveltal firing off Oblivion Wing instantly, looking to boost up its defense as soon as possible. And now it's at +1, which means the 2 Outrages will fail to take the knockout. Zygarde goes for a crunch. They're completely walled. The opponent realizes there's no longer a win con, and they will concede the match. All in all, these were some very fun battles, so many thanks to Blaze for the battle submission. Ever since the Keldeo Resolute form was introduced, I was really hoping to try and feature a Master League one. Unfortunately, my Keldeo that I have on my account is pretty poor IVs. I believe it has like 11 defense and 14 HP or something like that, and the attack stat isn't great either. So unfortunately, my Keldeo wasn't amazing, and since I hadn't bottle capped it, I didn't want to invest in my Rare Candy XL, so it was kind of just a waiting game. Because I knew that it was going to be an improvement over the ordinary Keldeo, just because Secret Sword is a significantly better move than Sacred Sword. Sacred Sword is 60-35, Secret Sword is 70-35, so it's already a pretty nice improvement in terms of its neutral matchups. I think Keldeo Resolute is terrific anti-meta for the Master League. That little bit of extra fighting damage on Secret Sword versus Sacred Sword makes the Zacian matchup feel so much better. Additionally, the fact that you have the ability to Poison Jab down a Palkia in the 2 shield after landing the Secret Sword, which I believe the ordinary Keldeo could not, these are all really meaningful matchup improvements against some of the best Master League Pokemon that you're going to be seeing time and time again. I think in the long run, for Keldeo to break out into Master League meta contention, what it's probably going to want is a fast move that has same type attack bonus. Poison Jab does offer it some unique coverage, and the ability for Keldeo to beat Pokemon like Xerneas is incredibly cool. But against Steel types, it's kind of tough when you're a fighting type that doesn't have an ability to farm down Steel types, and that could be the downside of running Poison Jab. So in the future, if it does end up getting double kick, for example, as a lot of the other swords do, or I believe currently it does learn low kick. So if low kick ever gets buffed in the future, I know low kick's kind of been terrible for forever, but anytime move updates are around the corner, it's always worth speculating something could get changed. So for the time being, it's incredibly cool anti-meta. I do wish that I had a better Keldeo, because this Pokemon looks extremely fun and like a very strong pick. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. Thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.